We made brownies.
Yeah. So what is it? It's like a bread maker. What? I mean,
Who knows? They have all kinds of things that make things.
well, they should.
It's, you know.
Hey, Lois.
Hey, hey,
How are
Rabbi.
you? How are
Hi,
you?
Rabbi.
Good, Baruch Hashem. Hi. Yes,
I'm hiding on the couch.
Okay.
together we're
Got it.
I'm here and they
the Three Musketeers.
tell them what was in the newspaper.
No, did you see about the Weitzner? Never mind. You don't want to know.
That case that one of the faculty at the Weitzner Yeshiva, he had possession of pornographic material. There were no accusations that he ever touched or anything like that, but because he possessed pornographic, they sent him to jail because it's some sort of federal offense.
It must be child pornography, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh,
right,
you're
right.
kidding.
No,
Oh, you didn't say
no.
that.
No, because regular pornography, you don't go to jail for that.
Oh, that's true.
Yes,
That's
true. You're right.
Oy.
And, so they got all sorts of letters of testimony from Rabbi Unger and from Rebbetzin Shkop and from her husband. And it's a whole thing. It was a whole.
Where did you get this information at? Where are you?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's really no area that seems to be spared of this scourge.
It's true.
There's just
Maybe he was doing research.
He wasn't doing
All right,
research,
you.
but he was always explicit.
there was one. I remember there was somebody famous who was caught, and that was his argument that he was doing research for a book. Or
Oh, really?
something.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. All right.
And I was also thinking, when we were talking about yesterday, that we were afraid that the Sanhedrin may be cowed into submission by a show of force.
Yeah.
Seems pretty far out to me. I
Why?
mean,
Herod and his
at
armies?
that time, Herod was not king. Herod was governor. He was a governor of a province.
And then
But he
became
came with
king.
soldiers.
Yeah, but he
Says
still had to contend with the king.
What king? You mean the Roman? I don't know.
Whoever was the king of Rome
I don't
at
know.
the time.
I don't know
Yeah,
what's
contend
going
with
on.
him.
No.
You're talking about the Roman king he has to deal with?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what was going on then, because there was there was a period of time where there still was a Jewish king, but the
Right.
Jewish king was really technically under Roman control. There was like a Roman advisor to the king. At one point, Herod's father was like the liaison to the Roman government, but like I don't remember, I think it was Hyrcanus, who was the son of Alexander Yanai. So, I mean, he doesn't have any real autonomy, these kings at that
No,
point. I
no,
mean, it might have been
Vesuvius
different
was
depending
king.
on which one.
Yeah, but
So-
still in theory, he was still under the control of the king. I mean, whatever.
I don't know, but like you have people that, even though technically, like let's say Senator McCarthy. So there were lots of people that were afraid of him, even though he's only a senator. He wasn't the president, he wasn't whatever, but he seemed to have, until he didn't, he seemed to have unimpeded
Right. Have you no shame?
ability. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but that still influence. It wasn't physical laying on of hands.
He came with a ton of soldiers. He came with a ton of soldiers. I
And
don't
they
know
hit
what you're going to
under
say.
him.
And these guys hid under the tables because they were afraid. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe that's a fable.
Huh.
That they actually hid under the table. It's hard to see it.
Well, yeah, it's hard to see it.
Well, it does seem like it's been happening now. So, I mean,
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Estelle.
hi.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi. You want an ice cream bar or something?
I'm good. I'll have some coffee.
I know you did.
So,
Oh, yeah.
no class tomorrow. That's right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Thursday.
Yeah. And in spirit on Thursday. We can all think
Yes.
of each other on Thursday.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Forgiveness.
That he prohibited the judge, this is 278, when he knows that a disputant is an evildoer and sinful, to incline his judgment against him. And that is his may be exalted, saying, do not incline the judgment of your needy in his dispute. The language of the Mechilta de Rabbi Shmuel, which again is a halachic collection of midrash, is when an evildoer and a righteous man stand in front of you, do not say, since he's an evildoer, I will incline his judgment against him. Hence, we learn to say, do not incline the judgment for your needy in the dispute, one who is needy regarding commandments, meaning, even though he is needy regarding the commandments, do not incline his judgment against him. The Hebrew from the quote is Evion. Evion often means like a poor person, but here it means poor of good deeds. Another way of describing a wicked person. So you should not, even though this is a known evildoer, you should not use the law to as a weapon. You still have to decide the law according to the law. That he prohibited the judge that he may not have mercy upon someone who killed his fellow or destroyed one of his limbs. This is meaning to say concerning the penalties. He shouldn't say, this one is poor, and he cut off another's leg or blinded his eye unintentionally. I will have mercy on him and give him charity towards him with the punishment. And that is his may be exalted, saying, let your eye not pity him and remove the innocent blood from Israel. So this, it reminds me of that book and that movie, Dead Man Walking. Was that also the name of the book? It was a movie. I think Sean Penn
I think
was the
so.
That nun
Susan
wrote it.
Sarandon. I think Susan Sarandon was the nun. So there is this ethos that that every human being deserves mercy, and that no human being should certainly should be killed, even if they killed somebody else. But it went more than that. Like over there, what and I obviously I realize that this isn't a good way to judge Christian theology from a movie or a book, but it did seem there that part of the responsibility of the church in that situation was to show the person who killed that, show them love, not just mercy, to show them love, and then to also advocate that they not be killed. So, and it's I think it's an ethos that has become prevalent in Western culture, and especially in the United States, to once the person is in prison, there's a kind of shifting of responsibility to regular citizenry to sort of advocate that this person is treated well, or at least treated well, and again to advocate that they not be killed. Whereas the Torah says that if somebody killed somebody, you're supposed to kill them. And it seems like from here that they call it shelo l'rachem al mi sheyaharog es chaver. That's how they chose to translate it into Hebrew. So not to show rachmanas to somebody who killed somebody else. That and this is a consistent theme in the Torah. The consistent theme in the Torah is that it's the responsibility of society to find the person who killed, and to, if all the criteria are present, to kill the person who was the killer. And you're not supposed to allow your sense of mercy to get in between. For me, the times when I find myself struggling with that are when it looks like the person has really turned around their life in prison, and that they've become a kind of beacon for good. And then people will say, what good is it to kill this person? Wouldn't the world be better if this person was allowed to live and continue to do the good that they've been doing since they sort of turned their life around? And that's a very persuasive argument to me. But it seems like over here that the argument would be that that doesn't matter. If the person was convicted of killing, and then that person should be put to death. The thing in a Jewish court at a time when they were doing the death penalty, he probably wouldn't have had the time to turn around his life once he was convicted, because you're supposed to carry out the sentence shortly after the person is convicted. But it could be that it took you a long time to catch this guy, and by the time you finally caught this guy, he had turned his life around. And but it would seem from here that you're not allowed to, once you've determined that this person killed another person, it's your responsibility to carry out that judgment and not to let your feelings get in the way of it, which again, it's very hard to do because it's another human being and you feel empathy for another human being. When Rebbe Akiva and Rebbe Tarfon said that they would make it very difficult for a Beis Din to come to that judgment, they're not necessarily saying that because the person doesn't deserve to be killed. It's possible that they're saying that because the they're not sure that it will have the desired benefit if they're killed. But even there, you'd have to, in a certain sense, feel that you have understand the underlying reasoning for this law, that this law is only because you'd have to say something like this law was meaningful at a time when death would be a deterrent, let's say, to bad action. So once it was decided that the death penalty is not a deterrent to to bad activity, if that was really the time, and again, you'd have to say that if this is what was going on with Rebbe Akiva and Rebbe Tarfon, that they were confident that they knew the reason for this mitzvah, and so therefore they're just going to make it very difficult to follow through and carry this out. They're not going to like remove it. They're not going to say it doesn't apply anymore, but they're just going to make it difficult for it to come out. That could be one motivation. There's another possibility that they were concerned that for whatever reason during their time, a person wasn't necessarily getting a fair trial. That's a possibility. What if it was demonstrated, as it seems to have been in the United States, that there is a greater likelihood that certain people from a certain race are killed than it is for somebody from another race to be killed, which implies that there's some kind of imbalance in the system. So for some reason, more people are, let's say, more people of color are being killed for their crimes than white people are being killed. So that would suggest that there's some inequity. It still may not argue that the black people are being treated unfair, because you might say that the black people are being treated fair, the white people are being treated unfairly positively. In other words, that white people are getting off, not because the people that the other people are not guilty. It's just they're being let off because they're being favored. They're being favored. So even though they're guilty, they're not being killed. So I don't know even there if that would be an argument that could say that there's something wrong with the system from a halachic perspective. Yeah, so I'm not sure what their underlying thinking is, why they're doing it. I know the argument against them was that if you don't follow through and kill somebody who's killed somebody else, then you're going to have the land is going to be rampant with murderers. So see, it seems like the argument against them is that by letting up on this and not prosecuting everybody that could be prosecuted in the way they could be prosecuted, that you're somehow you're taking a deterrent and making it obsolete. So whatever it is, it seems like from the Torah, from the beginning, that the attitude was that if somebody killed somebody else, that it's the responsibility of society to kill them.
When we were studying this, the death
Yeah.
penalty in Thursday class, it kept saying how the land itself would not atone unless you took care of the murderer, unless you
Right.
Right.
Right. Which made it sound like there's impact not just within human society, that there's some kind of broader impact, some kind of energy or something that impacts creation itself, and that it has to be resolved. It could be maybe not exactly, but it could be similar to what a sacrifice does. Like, for instance, there are cases when you're supposed to bring a sin offering. You typically only bring a sin offering if you transgressed a very serious avera that has very serious penalty by accident. So let's say a person actually violated idolatry by accident. They were under the impression that in a situation like this, they're allowed to bow down to the idol, and it ends up they shouldn't have bowed down to the idol. So that's a mistake. And when you make a mistake, you are supposed to bring a sin offering. But there are times when you may have done something that requires a sin offering, but we're not sure. So another example. So let's say you're doing with the idolatry one. So let's say they had said, if you bow down to this kind of an image, that would be idolatry. If you bow down to this kind of image, it's not idolatry. I could hear somebody, I remember that in that book, The Jew and the Lotus, so the Greenbergs, Yitz and Blue Greenberg were part of this group that the book is about that went to see the Dalai Lama. So part of the drama that they were experiencing as they're moving to actually see him was whether they should bow to him or not, whether they're allowed to bow to him or not, because he's considered an incarnation of a deity. And so when they bow to him, they could be bowing to an idol in a sense. So they weren't sure. I think in the end, they did decide to bow down to him. Let's say they made a mistake. Okay. Let's say they made a mistake. Then that would be a sin offering situation. Now, let's say somebody said to him, how did you bow? Like, how did you bow? And so they don't remember entirely. And this person says, if you bowed like this, you violated it. If you bowed like that, that wouldn't be a violation. Let's say it's that technical, but nobody remembers, and there's no evidence anymore. So you don't know, did they do it or did they not? There's a parallel example when it comes to forbidden fat. That when an animal that's a behemoth, which is a cow, a sheep, or a goat, so they have certain fat that it's forbidden to eat. It's around the kidneys, I think, and around the stomach. It's a certain fat that's forbidden to eat. So when it comes to kosher meat, they somehow have to make sure you didn't have that forbidden fat. So either they just don't use the parts of the cow that have that fat, or they have somebody who knows how to get rid of that fat. So let's say the scenario is you're eating at Shallot's and you ordered a steak, and they served it to you, and you've eaten like half the steak, And then the chef comes running out of the kitchen and they said, don't eat it, don't touch it, but you've already eaten half of it. And then they tell you that they were actually being videoed for some kind of Food Network show, and they were given a piece of meat to cook that was treif meat. And part of it being, it was like, let's say, filet mignon, and it came from that part of the cow that has the forbidden fat on it. So it's not just that it's not kosher, it has the forbidden fat on it. This guy cooked it for the show. It wasn't supposed to be served. It was just supposed to be for the show. Somehow there was a misunderstanding, and it got mixed in to other steaks that had been cooked, and you could not tell the difference. And we don't know, was your steak that one? Because if your steak was that one, then you ate the forbidden fat. Now, if you ate the forbidden fat, you should bring a sin offering. But if you didn't eat the forbidden fat, you're not allowed to bring a sin offering. So what do? So the Torah says in a situation like that, there's something called a conditional guilt offering, which you're allowed to bring until you verify what happened. If you never verify what happened, then it works. If it becomes clear that you did in fact eat the wrong steak, the forbidden fat, then you would bring a sin offering after that. So the guilt offering, this conditional guilt offering, it seems like what it does is it holds this negative energy at bay. That if I do something wrong, there's some kind of negative energy. And that negative energy needs to be dealt with. So you could either deal with it in the cases where tshuva alone works, you would just do tshuva, and that would deal with the negative energy. In cases where you need to do tshuva and bring an offering, so then you'd need to bring the offering. If I can't bring the offering, so what am I going to do? That there might have been negative energy generated and nothing's being done about it. I'm not saying nothing because I do tshuva, but there's an element of something that has to wait for this offering to be done. So what do I do about that? So that's apparently why you have the conditional guilt offering, in order to resolve that negative energy. So this is something that you see on and off when you're exploring what happens when we do something wrong, that there's an assumption that when human beings do something wrong, there's some kind of negative energy that's generated. In the throughout Yom Kippur, throughout Slichos and Yom Kippur, there's a point where we mention the 13 principles. Hashem, Kel Rachum V'Chanun. So these are 13 principles of mercy. Sometimes they're called. And so at the end of it, it goes, Hashem, Kel Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emes, Notzer Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon V'Fesha V'Chato. Nosei Avon V'Fesha V'Chato. So God holds, it's like he bears, it's like he's holding, like he's like sometimes a masa could be like a bag of something that's on somebody's shoulder. So God is like holding it. So what does that mean? So I think it's Ramosha Cordovera in his work Tomer Devora. So he says that because what's going on is that negative energy is out there, and it needs to be resolved. Meanwhile, God is trying to give you time to do tshuva, and so he himself holds it. They'll use language like he has to feed it, or he has to do something to it in order to keep it at bay. He has to hold it while you're trying to do tshuva, or during that time which he's giving you as an option in order to do tshuva. But and then once you've done tshuva, it is resolved by the tshuva itself. So you just see this a lot, and with the murder, that one, is the most explicit in the Torah that there's something like this. When it, like what Lois was referencing, when it keeps on talking about the, like the earth cry, the blood in the earth cries out, that there is something going on that is not just about how we as a society are going to be able to practically continue if we don't give the death penalty, but there's something in the realm of energy that is happening that has to be resolved. And if you don't resolve it, it takes back its peace somehow, which might be something more like what we think about like karma, like eventually if you don't resolve it, it gets resolved, and the way it's going to get resolved is on the people that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so especially when we're talking about tshuva now during this period of time, and especially on Yom Kippur, you'll see this kind of come in and out in the explanation of things, in the liturgy, that there is something like this. There is some kind of negative energy created when we do something wrong, and that negative energy will either come back on us or disappear if we do tshuva. That he prohibited a judge from slanting the judgment of converts and orphans, and that is his, Hashem, may be exalted, saying, you shall not slant the judgment of a stranger and an orphan. So the actual word is lahatot, so which means to like bend, like to bend it, sort of, or to turn it in the direction of. And behold, it has already been explained that one who slants the judgment of an Israelite transgresses the negative commandment. So you're not allowed to do this for anybody. And that is his saying, you shall not commit injustice in the judgments. So if he slanted the judgment of a convert, he transgresses 2 negative commandments. And if he was a convert and an orphan, he transgresses 3 negative commandments. So this is something, as we're seeing, that is really taken seriously, because they are covering like almost every facet of this. We already talked about the poor versus the wealthy. Now we're talking about the vulnerable versus the powerful. Like from every sort of angle, you're being warned that there needs to be an honest judgment. In order for this system to work, the people have to believe in the integrity of the judicial system, because so much rests on them. You don't have attorneys. This is not an adversarial setup. It's not. You're being brought in front of these judges, and these judges are going to do the fact finding, and they're going to make the decision. It's just them and you. So if there's not a belief in the integrity of those judges, then the system just breaks down, and all the chaos that comes from not having a true judicial system will arise. And so that would explain why there's so many warnings about this to the judges, that you cannot. It's absolutely imperative that you have the reputation for judging according to the law and not favoring this one or that one. Because, okay. That he prohibited the judge not to listen to one of the disputants when it is not in front of the adversary, which would mean if let's say somebody approaches a judge, which could happen in Chicago, because we know these guys, the judges are all, people within the community. So you could walk up to one of them and you would say, like, what do you think about this? I have this competitor. He did such and such and such. Is he allowed to do that or something? So the judge would need to say to him, is this going to come before me in court? Because if this is going to come before me in court, I cannot listen to you. We cannot have this discussion. Or he has to recuse himself, from it if they did have that kind of discussion beforehand. You must not to listen to disputants when it's not in front of the adversary, and that is his saying, you must not carry a false rumor. The actual language of that is los. We often translate this as you shall not bear God's name falsely, but that's not losi. That's not what this one is. This one is, it's very similar, but it means don't hold up something that was said falsely. The biblical one about saying God's name in vain, let's say, is losisa es shem Hashem lashav. This is losisa shema shav. It's very subtly different, but it means in language, but it's a big difference in meaning. So, and that is a saying, you must not carry a false rumor. For usually the words of a disputant that are not in front of his fellow disputant are false. Again, he may not think he's saying something false, but we're biased towards ourselves, and therefore it's unlikely we're going to give a fully objective review of what happened. He warned the judge from listening to those words so that the image created by these words that have no uprightness and have no truth to them do not enter his soul. The language of the Mechilta, again, Mechilta of Rabbi Shmuel, Halachic Midrash, is you must not carry a false rumor. That is a prohibition to a judge to hear the words of one disputant until the other is with them, and is a prohibition to the disputant not to state his case to the judge until his fellow disputant arrives. And to prohibit this very same content, he said, keep far from a false matter. That language is midvar sheker tirchak. Distance yourself from a lie. As I explained in the 4th chapter of Shavuos, and they said Shavuos is a tractate that deals with oaths, primarily, and they said that also included in this negative commandment is the prohibition against one who speaks evil speech, one who accepts it, and one who testifies with false testimony, as is explained in Malchus, in Makos 23a. This is a lot of stuff covered in one line. We've seen this. It's not like we've never seen this at all, but these are a lot of prohibitions included in this one. One of the things we're saying is a judge cannot listen to the testimony of one of the disputants not in the presence of the other one. It's also saying you cannot speak Lashon Hara, and you cannot accept Lashon Hara. These are, that you can see how they're in some broad category, but they're very different experiences. The one is only for a judge who is going to be hearing a case. The other one is for any one of us who are talking about somebody else. Lashon Hara just means that you are saying something that could harm the reputation of another person. So even if it's true, if it was not necessary to say it, you're not allowed to say it. It's prohibited. It's prohibited. So this would apply to any one of us. And also listening, to something that is Lashon Hara from somebody else would apply to any one of us. It's sort of interesting because you might have thought, like with Lashon Hara, that if a lot of people might have thought that the prohibition would apply to speakers, to somebody who's speaking Lashon Hara, but you wouldn't necessarily assume it applies to one who's hearing it. But this particular mitzvah is not to listen to somebody, right? Because the mitzvah was, do not listen to one of the disputants outside of the presence of the other one. So the actual prohibition is about listening, which would mean that so if it also refers to Lashon Hara, which they say it does, it's the listening one that is most explicit. The speaking one is the one that's less explicit about it. And then also the fact that this would include somebody who testifies false testimony. This, I mean, these are quite distinct, and they all are being included in this one thing. The last time I remember us having, I mean, we've had it a couple of times. One of them was the prohibition of lo tichanem, not showing favor. Originally, they were saying not showing favor to members of the 7 nations when we conquer Israel. It was extended to mean not showing favor to idolaters. But we said, included in that are, you're not allowed to sell land to idolaters in the land of Israel. You're not allowed to speak positively about an idolater to another Jew. And then there was one, you're not supposed to do a favor to an idolater. What was the fourth one? There was a fourth one. But anyways, you can see how you have this statement and it has like these sort of distinct ramifications. There's distinct action that are somehow all covered by this one statement. And here you have it again with this, because this is really broad stuff. There are other statements in the Torah that forbid speech that could harm somebody else, like Lo selech rochel ba'amecha, you shouldn't go like a talebearer amongst your people. That prohibits gossip. The Chofetz Chaim in his book, Chofetz Chaim, they call him the Chofetz Chaim because he wrote that book, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan. I think he lists 31 different prohibitions in the Torah that touch on harmful speech. Again, there's like niche harmful speech. There's harmful speech in a certain circumstance, like let's say the false testimony. That's a certain kind of harmful speech that might be different than gossip or that kind of thing.
It strikes me that it might be that there's an important difference. Like one of them requires an action. If I'm speaking Lashon Hara,
yeah.
If I'm listening to Lashon Hara, but that's not what I wanted to say. It's what did I want to say?
It's passive. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah,
it's passive.
Yeah. It was intent. That there's intent. If there's no intent of malice if I'm listening to something, whereas if I'm doing, and a lot of times we judge things by what's more, something's murder or not murder according to intent.
Now you could say that if somebody's listening to it, they are enabling the speech, because they're sort of encouraging this person to go on or to do this in the future. So there might be times when it looks like we're being passive, but we're really kind of as far as action goes, we are not taking action. We are passive, but it could be that there's an active problem that comes from the fact that I'm doing this. In other words, a real new problem. And that new problem is this person has now been encouraged to do more of this. So
Not if he's met by icy stairs all around the table.
Right. No, so then you're not, then you did not violate it. So that's the thing. When you look at the law, and I agree with you, it's fuzzy, but when you look at the law about listening, you're told, do not believe it if they say it. In other words, there might be times, let's say you're a therapist. So you're actually supposed to listen to this guy. If you're a therapist, you're actually allowed to, and you're supposed to listen to him. But then they'll say, do not believe it. Now, therapists at some point get used to that because they know that, let's say, the husband comes to talk to him and then the wife comes to talk to him. They've had enough experiences where they know that when you're just hearing it from one person, you're not getting the whole story. Police would know that because they often have those kind of experience. So at some point, you would know what that means to not believe it. But initially that might be fuzzy. What do you mean to say, I'm just going to say out loud, I don't believe it. But I mean, I could say those words. I don't know if that really has that effect. But yeah, but you hear that in the law, they'll say something like, you're not allowed to believe it. You're not allowed to accept it. Or like you're saying, you're supposed to rebuke the person. If they're doing something like that, you're supposed to rebuke them
Well,
for having done
I'm not advocating that. That might be true, but that's not what I was after.
You said icy stare.
Huh?
You said if you look at him with an icy
Yeah, I
stare.
know. Well, yeah, that was the thing. But the primary thing that I'm trying to say is, in one case there's intent, and in the other case there's no intent. So, which would provide pretty good grounds for making.
You're saying initial intent, but it doesn't matter. I mean, there could be a lot of things where there's not intent, but you're still not allowed to do it. Like,
well, if you're
let's say somebody has served you. Let's say somebody is going to he's going to pour a wine from a bottle into your mouth, and you now you have no intent. You have no reason to suspect, and you have no intent of drinking yain nesach, wine that was like sacramental wine to an idolater. But if you do in fact drink it, you still have transgressed. It's just going to be accidental, but you still will have been considered to have transgressed. And you would be expected to take action, like if somebody shouted out, that's yain nesach, you're now expected to take actions to prevent yourself from doing it. So you could say the same kind of thing when you're listening to Lashon. Same thing with the judge. This guy comes over and starts talking to the judge. Now the judge has to say to him, I cannot listen to you. You cannot be talking to me about this because this is a case that might come in front of me and I'm not allowed to hear it from you, beforehand. So that he's expected to take some kind of action at some point. Same thing with the listening to Lashon Hara, or you're expected, if you realize this is Lashon Hara, now you have to do something about it. Yeah, you have to either stop listening or tell the person to stop talking. All right. I am grateful that we had the chance to talk about this. I am going to give my Tuesday night class. I am looking forward to learning with you guys next. It's going to be a little bit because next Monday is Erev Sukkos, and then it'll be Chol Hamoed or whatever. So, or I might even be Erev Yom Tov the next one. So it's going to be a couple weeks. But whenever that first Monday after Sukkot is over, I look forward to learning with you guys then.
Thank you for everything.
Okay.
And yeah.
Thank you for being here and listening. All right. And talking and asking questions. Be well.
Yeah. A quick tshuva and you'll be sealed, and that'll be the end of it. You can leave at 9:30.
Bezrat Hashem. Okay. Gmar Chatima Tova. Gmar Sima Tova. Be well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.